Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Startup Grind's mission is to educate, inform, and connect entrepreneurs. And Dallas is was the fifth chapter. This is now old. We're now in over 300 chapters in 115 countries. It's sponsored globally by Google for Entrepreneurs. And in July of 2012, I was reading TechCrunch about an article about real estate in California. Just had some interest from my business, and the article was written by a guy named Derek Anderson. And I started reading his background in this company called Startup Grind. I went online, and I saw that it had 4 chapters, and one of them was Austin. I said, just sick and tired of Austin having things Dallas doesn't. And so I sent him an email and said, hey, I'm not a monster. I haven't got a felony record, so I'd be happy to start the Dallas chapter if you'd be interested. And of course, they had no screening, and yeah, come on board, please. And Dallas, Melbourne, and Seattle are the only offices or the chapters that have the same people running it for the last 5 years. There's different people in Austin, people in Houston, but a lot of it's just because we've had really good support from the local community. And we specifically wanted to move it around to various things. So I don't know if y'all know Jennifer Connolly. She was affiliated with Ericsson and the AT&T Foundry. We started there. And then when they founded the deck, we moved to the deck for a while. Gabriella has filled in as a MC for me a couple times over the years. She was one of my guests as well. And then we went to Common Desk for a while. We did that last year. And then now with what Tech Wildcat is doing, we're coming through with the Tech Wildcatter side just to make sure that a larger exposure inside of Dallas. So I want to say thank you very much for the folks at Tech Wildcatters, and also Silicon Valley Bank has been a sponsor literally from day one. I called up Robert Zurek and I said, hey Robert, what I'm doing is we want to support it, right? And so the reason why it's good is that we've got really good people that come in and also really strong speakers that do this for free. This is all about paying it forward. Somebody help you with your career, and when you come back and say, hey, I'm happy to share some experiences. And the format of this is really simple. It's just a fireside chat. It's not a pitch on CyrusOne. It's not anything. It's really about the entrepreneurial journey. Most of the time we have the founders. Here we have a gentleman who came on board a little bit later. We'll talk about the dynamics of that. And it's really just a conversation. And so who here has heard of Steve Blank, Eric Rees, Customer-Centered Development? Raise your hand. Okay. So we kind of follow that. So there's only one question that I ask every single guest. I'm going to ask that to him first. He doesn't even know what it is, but he knows it's pretty easy. And then he's going to talk for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. You're going to learn a little bit about it. And then I'm going to ask you all, hey, what do you want to learn? Now that you know a little bit about Gary, what is it that you want to learn? And it's not like, oh, Gabriella said this, and I'm going to ask you the question. But it's really just kind of themed, and then I'll weave those into the conversation. And if I don't hit it or you want to dig deeper, we'll have a Q&A at the end. And also at the end, what we have is the gong show, right? You get to stand up and say, hey, this is my name, this is how I can help someone, or this is the help that I'm looking for. And it's not, an advertisement for your business. It's about 15 seconds, and if you droll on, I will say sit down. But if you come here to learn, and you come here to meet people, and you're going to learn, you're definitely going to learn, and there's a higher probability you're going to meet somebody here that can help you if you say what you're doing, and etc. Like Sean here, he's got a business in the baby space, and a lady used to work for him. He's got a business in the baby space, been doing it 7 years, so I'm going to connect them up, and now he's going to meet her. She's really sharp, and hopefully he's going to avoid some of the potholes that she's gone over the last 7 years. So that's the spirit of this. And you will see this grow within the Tech Wildcatters community. And usually we like about kind of 50 to 80. We don't want several hundred because then you lose the salon kind of components where there's a real, kind of conversation. So once again, I'll say thank you very much to Gary for joining us. And the first question I have, it is, what is your passion, right? Running a business is very difficult. Some days you're going to have a good day. Other days it's going to be a shitstorm. It's like, okay, I still want to get a speeding ticket coming to work, even though I know it's not going to be a very good day, right? And so what really drives you as an executive?
It's thanks. Listen, my wife should talk too much and too loud. So, it's funny. So today we had our entire executive team come in to Dallas and go over what the last 5 years was. So we IPO'd about 5 years ago. And we were reviewing the plan that we had set out when we were IPOing the company, and we we went through that whole process and explained what went well, what didn't. But the thing that, like when you go through that whole process, the thing that motivates me most is setting out some objectives that are pretty big, right? That, you know,
Big, very audacious goals.
They're pretty big objectives. Like the ones we set out today, I'm sure everyone's like shitting in their pants about what we're trying to do. But it's setting out those objectives, getting everyone rallied around trying to achieve those things, and all working collectively together, and then just celebrating all the wins along the way. You know, when you look back, you're like, oh God, we did all of that, right? That to me is what really gets me excited every day. And you know, it's always about building. It's about doing some really great things with really cool people that are all motivated to achieve something that you don't think is achievable when you start the journey.
Exactly. So you all were here to learn something, right? So Gary's running a very interesting business that's in the, it's kind of a REIT/data center, publicly traded. It's been around for a while, about $500–600 million in revenue. What are the kinds of things that you want to learn from him tonight? Just kind of raise your hands, just say, hey, this is what I want to learn. Just, yes, David.
Scaling,
okay.
inflection points when you can scale and challenges you have with that.
Yes, Bob?
Use of high performance computing.
Sure.
You have them, you're looking to add on AI functions.
Got it.
Sure.
Sean?
Like building a solid team when you don't have money.
Yeah.
That's the magic of an entrepreneur.
Right.
1 second. Yes. Go ahead.
Going from how do you suggest moving from something that everybody's doing as a reactionary mode into some people that are, you know, you want to stimulate them to do proactive things.
You talk about like in corporate initiatives?
Yeah, corporate
So
initiatives.
basically moving from playing defense to playing offense?
Exactly.
Okay. Any others? We can weave them in a little bit later. Okay, so let's talk about team, right? It all kind of starts and ends
Lee,
with
I
team.
hope you were keeping track of all those things. All right.
It's not my first rodeo.
All right, here we go. Good.
So first one is about team, right? The way I look at teams is just look at the Beatles, pretty good team. Look at the Monkees,
Yeah.
right? Not a very team, right? And that was fabricated. So talk about how you go about it. I mean, you were there. You've been a fair amount of larger companies, so you haven't like gone in the trenches and like formed the business and all that. But what you have done is you've hired a lot of people.
That's right.
Talk about how you recruit, how you think about recruiting, how you attract people, and when you're first meeting people in an interview situation, not kind of building seeds, but in an interview situation, what is it that you're really trying to accomplish in that discussion?
So to me, there's two important parts of my job. It's making sure we get the right team and deciding where we're going to place the bets. And just to rewind the clock a little, give you some perspective. So this CyrusOne was born out of an old line telephone company. I was CFO of
Cincinnati Bell.
Cincinnati Bell, 140-year-old company selling yesterday's news. It was a company that's going out of business, and I was tasked with figuring out what to do with all the cash flow they generated. And of all the different lines of business, there was this one, it was a data center, it was tucked in the managed service business. It was really small at the time, maybe about $20 million of EBITDA, so maybe 50 million bucks of top line. A really small business. And I'm like, I think there's something to do here, spent some more time working on it. And long story short, it's grown, and since last 7-8 years, we're about, on a run rate basis, about an $800 million top line business. So it's about an $8 billion valuation business, about 5.5 debt, 2.5 equity. So we've grown really exponentially. Over this course of time, and you can hit a bunch of these questions in here, but the team aspect of this is the most important thing. I mean, if you think about, most businesses fail because they have a really shitty strategy, they're selling like a product that's irrelevant, or they're really kind of resource starved. Most businesses fail for that. In our case, we had a business model that was based on an explosion in data, which it's hard to kill that from the secular perspective. And
You're riding a big wave.
Yeah. We've got that lined up. We've got tons of access to capital. So to me, and it's still the number one thing that I focus on, what's going to get us to the next 5 years, and I just gave this speech today to my team exactly, it's solely about the team. It's identifying people that in we are, we're kind of a bigger company now, but it's still fundamentally a startup. What I look for in everyone that we hire, and I go down pretty deep levels in interviewing pretty low-level people, because the worst thing in the wrong and that you could possibly do is get the wrong person on the team. And I don't know, there's a great book, The Asshole Rule, and it's some MIT professors.
I just read that one.
It's fantastic.
What is it?
The no asshole rule.
Yeah, the no asshole rule.
We followed it
It's-
up with another one.
Great book.
You have to spend the amount of time making sure you don't get those folks on the team, because they can destroy the mojo. We go to the point where I give $5,000 to people to lead the team, but if you're not the right mindset, what we fundamentally look for are people who are really passionate about what we're trying to do, who are at their core builders, who can function in organizations that are really not prescriptive. Like, our processes aren't really well laid out, they're not automated, they are always behind our revenue growth. I mean, we're structured as a REIT, so we're the fastest growing real estate company in the country and the best performing over the last 1, 3, and 5 years. We've done really, really well. Fundamentally, the guys who do well in our company are people who are builders, who like kind of, an organization that's really not prescriptive and can work well in a team, who are participants. You can't be a wallflower, you got to get in the game, and can communicate and work well with others. If you don't have those things, regardless of what position you're in, we call it.
Summarize them. So, can work well within a team. You're a doer, not a washer. And what are the others?
You're passionate about what you're trying to do, and you're
mission driven,
and you're a builder.
Yeah, at Dell we call them, you're a missionary, not a mercenary.
Yeah. You are focused on building something and going into an organization where there's no process, no procedure, and building something and making it, putting your thumbprint on it.
Right.
A lot of people are managers, right? They work 9 to 5. Their goal in life, and they're really great. Everyone needs them. But we don't need them at that point in our company right now. We're growing way too quickly. We're much more focused on people that can help us achieve bigger objectives.
Right.
We spend a lot of time on that. And we know very quickly if we make the wrong decision, we're like, they're running outside the pack. Way to try to, with monetary, we go through, we pay people, we're up to like $6-7 now, paying people to leave the company that don't want to be there, and it's no harm, no foul. Like, look, here's $7,000, you go.
We made the mistake. You didn't fit.
Yeah, no big deal. And so it's a great thing that we've been doing over, and it's just people can self-select out on that, because the worst thing in the world, they bring everyone down, right? It's you get a group of people or a person, and then it becomes a group, and they just become the Debbie Downers, and they become so despondent, talking about all the negative things that we're doing, rather than focusing on all the positives that we're doing. We're all winning together, and the way teams win is a recognition of every person on that team plays a critical role, and they have to understand their role in winning, right? No team comes together with, a bunch of Michael Jordans on. Everyone's got a different position on that, and everyone's got to recognize that role. And so people who are negative, who are just down, we just try to weed them out.
Right. So David is asking about scaling, and part of scaling is being able to continue to drive a message down into the organization that gets more and more difficult as you get larger and larger. Kind of talk about what you've learned as an executive of how you continue to drive culture and continue to drive messaging. It's important for those people that come on board and don't really understand the culture of the company in the first couple of months.
So we spend a lot of time on making sure we get the right people in. Then once they're in, they got to start drinking the Kool-Aid right away. So we spend a lot of time through acculturation. There's a lot of training. There's a lot of going out, drinking, dinners. You're part of this.
Can I just get interviewed?
Yeah. and it's a good process. But when you're talking about really scaling to that point, is the trick in most companies is how do you go from something that is really cool startup, and you're doing things really well as kind of an entrepreneur, to scaling once you start hitting kind of hyperdrive. And the challenge there is there's a couple things in it, but one is you have to rely, you have to fundamental one, determine what are the metrics that you're really most critical. How do you measure those things? Because, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, and this is a lot of people don't like it, right? They go like, oh, Big Brother's here, it's bureaucratic, but ultimately you're going to manage the business by the numbers as you scale the company. The trick for the management team is how do you cross the chasm without becoming like overly Big Brother, still keep that mojo in the company, still keep that winning type of focus, but you know, jump the shark, so to speak, where you can get to the other side and still, people are still having a fun time, but now you're talking about the numbers in a very methodical way, and that's a challenge. We've been doing that probably the last 2 years, and there's a lot of pushback in the company. People are like, oh, that's not the way we used to do it, and you just got to keep on message all the time in everything you do. You cannot over communicate. I write blogs to everyone. I have every quarter after we have our earnings release. Earnings
type deal, right?
Yeah, we go through, and then we go through numbers, right? We talk about all the W's and the things we could do better, and everyone on the team is involved in that.
When you say the team, you mean everybody in the organization?
Everyone in the organization. We have, usually it's at the Ritz here, and so we got about 150 people here, and another 300-400 people around the rest of the country. Everyone dials in, but that's really important every quarter to talk about the wins and celebrate and have a party and talk about, hey, these went great. Hey, here are the things we got to do better.
Yeah.
So everyone knows as you go along that year, you've got to pull everyone, and they've got to be committed throughout the year. But communication is really, really key.
So you talked about, you spend a lot of time on the front end in terms of getting to know the people, understand that. Do you have, let me ask you a different way. How is your onboarding team and the hiring team structured? Because some companies, they want like a culture manager to kind of understand, is this person going to be fit for our culture, and they're not part of the hiring manager, right? So you don't have that dynamic, I got to get this person in.
Yeah.
Or how do you all do that? I mean, everybody has their own kind of special sauce, because that, if you can get that hire right, it plays so many benefits down the line.
So when we're bringing people on board, there's people that whatever area that they're going to be hired in, right? So if you get an accountant, typically 8-9 people are going to interview that person. There's going to be about 3 folks that are from that area that are going to assess skills.
Technical
right?
skills.
Yeah. Are all the debits equal to the credits, and things balance, all the other stuff.
Technical.
Someone's going to certify that this guy can really count the beans like his resume says, right? All the other folks on the team, which are from all the different areas, are going to assess culture. Yeah, was this person someone I want to hang out with? Is he interested? Is she creative? Can she joke? Like, are we going to pull someone in the team that's going to add to that conversation?
Right.
We're really focused on people that we really want them to talk, right? We fundamentally believe no one in the company, there's no monopoly of good ideas, right? It can come from anything. We're fundamentally in a real estate business. There's no intellectual property that we have that is patentable, where we can say that is our advantage. What makes us win is the collective wisdom of the team and the speed at which we can continue to execute that separates us from the rest of the pack. And so it's really critical that we hire people that can help continue to accelerate that.
Right. Yeah, you'll have some massively modular, and you've actually trademarked, or you've registered it.
Yeah.
And when you're in a business that's been around for a long time, dirt's been around for a long time, there are key things that are important. One of them is, how do you differentiate what you do? One of my guests in the past is Lance Crosby, who you're probably good friends with.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talked about was he couldn't keep up the spending of $200 million a month to compete with the Amazons of the world. And so that's where he said, and his private equity guys, and he was private, you got access to public dollars. He said it was the right move for us to go sell to IBM. You guys are in a similar business, but it seems like you got a little bit different strategy. Right? Talk about how you are positioning your business within the context of other larger players that are spending more money, but you found a market that is really, really valuable and growing as well, and allows you to thrive as a company. Because if I'm an entrepreneur, more often than not, somebody's doing what I'm doing. If I win, somebody's going to lose. Not all the time, but somebody's going to lose. And how would I think as an entrepreneur, like Gary, in terms of, okay, here's the way the market is, and here's how we kind of view the market and how we position the strategy for not this year's success, but 5 and 10 year success, because as a public company, Wall Street's wanting double-digit growth, otherwise you need to be a private company, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. So part of it, so what Lance does is a complete, so Lance will be a potential customer of ours. So we're kind of in the tech space, but we're really a real estate player.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone on the team.
By the way, a REIT, they've got to give away, was it 12% you're promised? Is it REIT?
We have to give 100% of our after-tax income, 90%, but you effectively give away 100%.
Right. So if you're an investor in a REIT, you get a yield, and it's public stock, and he's got to take cash, otherwise go grow the business and give it away. So it's a very interesting deal.
Yeah. So our balance is every dollar we invest in the business, we got to convince more companies to buy into what we're doing so we can pay it forward. So most companies finance all of their growth through retained earnings, and they just continue to invest in the business. And then if you grow faster, you're supplementing with what every year we raise, like this year, we raised about $3 billion of capital because we pay out a bunch and we just keep plowing it forward, right? So we rely on external investors all the time. The answer to your question in terms of what differentiates us, so we're a real estate company. We were traditionally we're structured as a C Corp, which, you know, either you guys are C Corps or partnerships here. We converted to a REIT prior to the IPO. Everyone on the team, except for, I just have a new CFO, she's a hardcore real estate person, and a general counsel is a real estate person. Everyone else on the team are tech, telecom, folks who have a completely different background. So when you think about what we're doing, we're just, this is the question or the point earlier, but we're selling just air-conditioned space, fundamentally, with high amounts of electricity in here. So it's a completely commoditizable business, but there's lots of businesses in the world that are commodities and you can make a boatload of money on them, as long as you're differentiated versus the other guys. When we were starting this business, we were a really small company. We were undercapitalized. We didn't have the same balance sheet as some of the other folks that were investment grade, more access to capital, lower cost of capital, and in our business, it's extremely capital intensive. This year we'll spend about $800 million in CapEx, just growing the business organically outside of M&A. So, the guys ultimately who win in that type of industry are the people who have access to capital, low cost capital, wins a capital intensive business, right? So when we first started this business, we were very focused on defensively. We never wanted to be in a position to be the high cost producer, having the highest cost of capital. Like that's a proposition for losing. Yeah. So, I'm a Paul, I run a technology company, so I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I knew.
Don't sell yourself short, Judge. You're a tremendous slouch.
I knew that recipe would be a recipe for disaster, right? So when we started the company, we were focused on two things. I always wanted to be the low-cost producer in this market because I believe fundamentally over time it'll be a commodity product.
Commoditized, right?
And hand in hand, I always needed to focus on the supply chain that was faster than anyone else because I wanted to minimize how much capital I had at risk. So if I can deliver a data center in like a week's time, I minimize my capital at risk. So what we've done over the years is we can stand up a data center from dirt to commissioned space in 3 months and move a cloud company in there. The next fastest competitor is about 18 months, right? I can do that on a unit cost metric that's about 30 or 40% below my competitors. So I have got a huge cost advantage, time to market advantage that historically we've just been using to create big yields. I mean, typically every dollar I invest, I make 15 to 20% on a cash.
Hell of a return.
Really good, right? It's not like crazy tech multiples
But you're not taking tasty credit much below risk.
That's right. I've got a nice, dependable cash flowing, growing business. It's a great business. I'm never going to grow 50, 60, 70% a year, but I can grow 15 to 25% a year for a really long time. So we've approached business differently and it's worked really well. And now as we scale, like in most things, if you do more reps on the team, you just get better, right? If you're running that same block every time and that same passing play, more and more times you do it, the better you get. And since we're growing so much faster than anyone else, the relative advantage we have versus our peers is just increasing. So as we're getting ahead, we can lower our costs, and so now we just continue to accelerate the differential between us and the other guys. And this doesn't only apply to all of our peers. I mean, this applies to every single cloud company out there. So our biggest focus now is we've been dominating the cloud space over the last 2 years. So every major cloud company in the world you can think of as a customer of ours. Now what we're trying to do is dissuade all of those companies from ever building another data center again, because now the conversations is at the CFO level, CEO level, say, look, we can do this cheaper than your 1,000-person organization, and you can get rid of the 1,000-person organization. We can do this cheaper, faster, at the same quality, so why not? And meanwhile, if you're spending $1 billion, why don't you go spend $1 billion on the next Instagram rather than
or something that is in their core ability to differentiate.
That's
Because
right.
building a data center doesn't help them differentiate.
That's right.
It's, where is their unique value they offer the marketplace, and building a data center is one.
That's right.
And they don't do it as often as you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you guys do it all the time, right? That makes sense. I want to get to this gentleman's question about moving from defense to offense, but before we get completely off the team, you guys, university is a big topic right now. You guys have an African-American chairman, you have a female CFO. Looks like you guys are well ahead of the curve here. How are you kind of addressing that, and how important that is that to y'all's culture as well?
It's huge. The more voices you can get in the conversation, the better you are. Your job when you're running a company is to create an environment where everyone feels like they can throw their opinions in there and they don't feel like an idiot, like, if they raise the question, right? It's the trick as if you're running those companies is you got to create that environment where everyone feels very trusting about each other. So even if we didn't go in the direction that you said, you don't feel bad about throwing it in, you'll get it the next time.
Right.
And that's the whole voice. And the only way you can get those different voices in there is by choosing like an eclectic group of folks in there. And,
Think differently.
yeah, that think differently, but you gotta have commonality in terms of those other things. You gotta have people who are really creative, who are focused on building. Those other core things are endemic to everyone we have. And then outside of that, you just want different experiences, different people, differences really create, good opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of to combine the question of scaling and then moving from defense to offense, sometimes as CEO, you feel like you're playing defense a lot more than you want to play offense, right? Talk about how you have taken an initiative that wasn't going very well. It could be here, it could be when you're in Cincinnati or wherever, and you turned it around and it became something that was as it was originally intended. But you had to go through a shitstorm, you had to change people, you had to change strategy, you had to do something, right? And you can probably think of multiple, like this, like we can talk about that for a long time. But what are, something that if I'm in this audience and I'm thinking about my business and I'm always playing whack-a-mole, how can I move from that position to really feel like, hey, this is something that's driving the conversation in the marketplace?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so many of those, but in all of those, you just can't stop. Right? You have to always keep your eye on that long-term agenda, whatever it is that you believe is the correct thing to do, and just continue to execute, continue to push everyone, pull everyone. You just can't quit, because if you do, you're never going to get there. I mean, the amount of negativity you get all the time on everything is just insane. And if you're like a nice person, I generally I like everyone to come along and do, but you learn over time that that's just not the case. We just had a readout. This is a real example. We just had a readout from our team. We just did a whole, sampling around the whole company about commitment, all these different things. The pyramid thing of the basic needs of people, the trusting, this whole, HR pyramid stuff. And you'll find in that, we had really high results. 75%, 80%, in different things, which on average, typically most companies score around 50%. And so the team started focusing on, oh, look at, there's 20%, 25% of the people that are just not, they're not coming along. We should focus on them. And,
Boils on the asset progress.
yeah, and I used to focus on them early in my career. I'm like, how do we get them to come along? How do we get them? When I learned, like, look, you're wasting your time. You are much better off focusing on the 75% of the team that is focused and committed on helping you achieve your objectives than trying to get the 20, 25% that aren't, because a lot of those people are just miserable. They're just not there, they're the Debbie Downers, they're the negative folks, and you gotta stay away from them and focus on the team that you have that's gonna win.
Right.
And you can't ever quit. You always have to just stay on message all the time and just push.
Yeah. I don't, in Startup Grind, some people have been here multiple times. I don't really talk about my background as much, but I spent 7 years at Dell Computer, ran around badge number 244, had $59 million in sales. First guy they sent overseas, left when we were $4.5 billion in sales, 10,000 employees. Started a business, venture-backed, then also started an investment management company called Annandale Capital. We manage over $1 billion of assets, and now I'm back in the tech world. I'm doing some stuff I'm passionate about. And so, when you spend your first 7 years in business at Dell Computer, you understand a lot of things about top-line growth and how it really covers a lot of sins.
That's right.
But you also really understand the dynamics of a channel and how important that channel is. Because there were 400 companies doing what Dell Computer did, and we just executed, and we executed channel a lot better. And David, you're asking about scale. Everybody here has heard Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn. He has a podcast that's just started coming out last year called Masters of Scale. And if you haven't read it yet, or not really, if you haven't started listening to it, it is phenomenal. And because he's Reid Hoffman, he gets access to Mark Zuckerberg, Sheryl Sandberg, and Peter Thiel, and everything else. And I think you'd even enjoy it as well. There are probably like 10 or 15 different articles. And I'm framing this within the context of going back to strategy, right? Reid was interviewing Peter Thiel, and he talked about the black hole of competition. He said that if you're in a business and you're always competing, you're trying to find it hard to compete, you will find it extremely hard to get out of that black hole unless you do one thing. Reid says, what's that? He said, you change the rules of how the game is played, right? And he gives, Uber's a good example, and Airbnb is a good example of going into very old industries, transportation and housing, been around a long time, right? Not quite as long as dirt, but almost as long as dirt, right? But what they did is they didn't do a roll-up of black cars. They didn't do these things that others were doing. They fundamentally changed how the game's played. And when I was doing my research for this, it's difficult to fundamentally change this in that, but you guys, by putting it in a restructure and coming to market with a message that, building a data center is non-core to your competitive differentiation, let us do that, and then we can do that faster and we can do that cheaper. In a public structure, because a lot of companies won't do it with the startup. Even if you got $1 billion of cash, it doesn't matter. You need access to the public markets for a large company to really do that. It seems like you all were moving in that path of kind of changing the game of how those were played. Is that incorrect or accurate?
No, that's very accurate, but those are probably secondary to what we fundamentally did in terms of changing the game. Is that fundamentally all we did was, if you think of real estate, it's a really staid industry. You build a building, you got some capital costs in here, you add it all up, I have a cost of capital, I do a spread on that, and I'm gonna carve it up and I charge rent to cover that, and that's how I make my money. And I hope that the residual value of that in the end is higher, right? Well, that's how real estate works. What we do was very different. What we fundamentally did was basically deploy manufacturing concepts to an industry, to construction. So we're very much like the other great company in town, Southwest Airlines, right? We focus on design, because the only way long-term you can ever achieve long-term cost out initiatives, if you want to achieve a lower cost over a 5, 10, 15-year period, is through design. You have to focus on it maniacally, and you also have to focus on supply chain, all the other inefficiencies in that whole process. And so earlier in my career, I worked at General Motors, and, they were pretty good at supply chain, right? You could bang out 1,500 cars in a day in these plants. It's really impressive from an engineering perspective when you think 1,500 cars, right?
There's probably 10,000 SKUs in a car.
Oh, yeah, way more than that, right? So all we were doing was basically employing those techniques, design, engineering, and supply chain, to focus on and applying it to real estate, which it's a game changer. And that has enabled us to just achieve costs and speed that no one else has. And even though what we're doing, we're not splitting the atom. There's nothing patentable here, but we have institutional know-how and knowledge that no one else has. And as we scale, we do more of it. And that's really the biggest, that's really the game-changing thing that we brought to this space.
So I'd like to say it's better to execute than to be executed.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's talk about harrowing moments in the career, right? Like some of the deepest, darkest, like, oh my gosh, we got some serious existential crisis here. Because as an entrepreneur, you're going to run across that, on a very regular basis. And then I'm going to weave in a Southwest Airlines story that I love telling about one of theirs that, you mentioned Southwest Airlines. So anything come to mind in terms of like, oh, wow.
Existential story. Yeah, I mean, we had at one point where, when we were first pulling this company together, so my bigger master plan was, I was the CFO of the company, I was going to do a bigger roll-up of a bunch of different smaller data center companies and pull this together as part of a bigger play. It was a huge time to market and manage. It was really fragmented, so and we had the balance sheet to go do it. So after we did this first deal with Cyrus, which it was a really small company in Texas here, so we had a small business. We acquired a small business here, and then I had my eyes. I had like 3 others in line. We were going to close on those, and then shortly after we closed this deal, the guys we bought made a bucket of money. They were pissed off. We had a big, telco organization that was just. Most telcos are just unbelievably efficient about killing great organizations. and so I'm trying to run defense.
Well, our great idea is going to die.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, and that's actually how I ended up running the place. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, they're going to kill this thing. And they were killing the first part of the master plan I had. And then I ended up inserting myself, trying to, get everyone on sides, make sure everyone didn't completely leave the company, and we stopped all the infighting and doing that to kind of drive this and pull everyone together. And that was pretty difficult. I mean, it took about a year to get that going.
What was the biggest lesson you learned through that process about you as an individual?
It goes back to your other question. You always have to be focused on what that end goal is, and you can't take your eye off the prize. You have to always believe in it. You have to focus on it, and you can't let any of these small things ever rise to something that is bigger than the end goal. You can't
keep your eye on the prize.
You can't quit, and it's hard. Look, you're out there. You'll be by yourself. I was in board meetings. I'm the only person in there fighting for this position. There's no one on the team that supports you because these
it'll test your confidence, it'll test your security.
Absolutely. You've got to be, in big companies, there's a lot of CYA, and you've got to be really knowledgeable and confident about what you're doing and don't give any ground.
You just made a comment, I'm going to make a supporting comment, and I'll talk about the Southwest Airlines. So, I can't tell you what line at Google, otherwise it'll give it away. But I have a very close friend that runs one of Google's lines of business, like one of the largest ones. And we're really close friends. And he said his worst enemies are the people that are his peers. He said it's just unbelievable that they don't want to see him successful because they want there to be successful, and they think it's a zero-sum game. And that's a cultural issue. It's just really interesting. Rollin King.
That that to me is a lack of leadership at the CEO level.
That's right.
Like when I see that in my organization, I call that out really immediately and say that's just bullshit. We are either going to fight, like we're going to have a conversation on open ground on this one, and we are one of the things that didn't say it, but in the process where we self-select out is if you are lazy and if you're not particularly intelligent, or if you are passive aggressive, you're dead. You will not join the
We're
team.
talking about team orientation.
If you come into the team and you find out you're passive aggressive, you're gone too. Because I don't have time for that inefficiency. We can talk, we can debate, and you win, fine, let's go your way. I win, we go my way, but we're not going to leave a conversation.
rowing the same boat, same
We're
direction.
going together. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, there's the-
you got to kill that.
I mentioned Germany, so there's a saying, der Fisch stinkt from the Kopf zuerst, which means the fish stinks from the head first.
Yeah.
Right, it is a leadership
That's
issue.
right.
So Rollin King was the founder of Southwest Airlines. A lot of people think it's Herb Keller. He was the attorney that was founding, and Colleen Barrett was the admin. It's just a great story. A lot of people know it. So what you don't know a lot of is I was with Rollin King a while back, and this morning I had breakfast with a guy named Dave Ridley, who was a CMO for a long time. And I didn't tell him a story, I should have, but we had talking about other things. So I asked Rollin King this. He passed probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I asked him a question. I said, tell me the most harrowing moment in the history of Southwest Airlines. Because you can learn a lot about how people respond and how you respond and how you look at, death in the wall, and death in terms of not your family and all that, but in terms of your business, and how do you approach that. And this is phenomenal. It's 20 seconds. Braniff, or a little bit longer. So Braniff ran a fare war that was $13 one way, Dallas to Houston, because they knew that was the only route that Southwest Airlines was making money on, $25 one way. They were losing money, $25 one way to San Antonio. And they knew that there were issues because on Friday, you remember that 10-minute turnaround Southwest Airlines has? So on Friday they had 4 planes, and on Monday they had 3, because one of them got repossessed, because they couldn't make their commitments. They had $60,000 in the bank, and they were burning $40,000 a month. This was like 1973 or 74. So Braniff announces his fare war. They basically pulled their team together, like we get in a war room, and over the weekend they came up with a strategy. On Monday they started running ads in Dallas and Houston. You can still find these ads online. It says that Braniff has initiated fare war. We're not going to match him. We're going to keep it at $25. And if you fly us, we will be more on time. We will not lose your baggage. And you will receive a fifth of Chevis Regal for every single segment that you fly. He said we were the largest distributor of Chevis in the world for 4 months. It saved our business, right? So whether it's what they were doing or what Rollin King and those guys did, you just have to be resourceful. You just have to figure out a way to get it done. And another really, if you're going through and starting a business, a really, really good book is called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. So everybody's heard of Andreessen Horowitz. He's written a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things about basically turning a profitable public company that was in the hardware business that knew they were going to go to zero and basically fired every single customer, turned it into a cloud business. Why, as a public company? You can imagine that wasn't a very easy thing. So talk about the way that I think about this from trying to equate what you're doing and a company that's got resources with here, where a lot of people are just trying to get things going. A lot of it is how you prioritize your time, right? Because at the end of the day, that's really the only thing you somewhat control or you have more influence over than other things. Talk about how you prioritize your time. What are some tips and tools and techniques? Oh, that's cool. Okay, that's some badass stuff. Y'all just noticed this? I just noticed that. Now we stop. We got to talk about his boobs. That's cool.
shoot the cooler thing.
Yeah.
So we got 3 people in the company now that got CyrusOne tattoos. Some girl yesterday got one on her ankle too. So we have 3 people.
That's a culture.
That's super cool.
That's a culture.
Yeah, that's like a Harley Davidson cool.
She is in the middle of that.
Yeah. Oh, she's in the middle of
That's awesome. That's really cool. So talk about how you look at your week. When do you start planning your week? What are tools and things you use to kind of manage your tasks? Talk about those kind of things that we can learn from.
Yeah, prioritization is absolutely the most difficult thing because there's not enough time in the day, and I focus on what's always the most important to me, and it's if you looked at my calendar in terms of where I spend most of my time, it is customers and revenue generation, like 50% of my time. Probably 25% of my time is spent on on capital allocation, and then the other 25% is on the team. And so that generally where it all breaks down all the time. And my calendar is arranged where I Sunday nights is generally where I start, getting back into it, right? Around like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock when I'm on the couch, I start, kind of mapping out that week. I find out what are the key meetings that I'm going to get to. Like my calendar is, like 10 meetings a day if I'm here, and you're focusing on what are the most important things? How do we get through each of those issues quickly? And prior to it, what is the piece of information that I need to come out of those meetings? Because your job, you're just trying to assimilate as much information as coming at you that you can make the most informed decision. So when I set up those meetings all the meetings are pre-set up, but when I look at what's coming up ahead for those meetings during the week, I think about what is it that I want to get out of each of those meetings. So when I go into them, I could just get to the heart of the issues and when we're done.
Oracle would call it going ugly early.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
It kicks everything else. Let's just go ugly early.
Yeah. It's much more efficient for me because you don't have a lot of time and, sometimes, and not meaning to be rude, but I'm like, okay, I bring it back home. My wife gets really pissed. So she's like, what's with the...
Yeah, that mentality doesn't,
I'm like,
it doesn't fly.
I got it, let's go. And so it's, you're just trying to cut through the issues quick so you can go get to what you need and move on. Yeah.
That's gauge.
Yeah, so that's how I spend most of the time. And also the other thing is you're always focused on what is the most important thing every day that you should be focused on, right? You always think about that every day too. There's always something that is the most important priority that you need to be focused on. And when I talk with my folks, I want to make sure I understand what it is that they think is the most important thing that they're focused on, because there's always one thing in your life that's always the most important. You just gotta focus on that, because otherwise you're never gonna be able to prioritize and get that most important thing done to really achieve what you're trying to do.
So last question, because we're running a little bit low on time, is talk about board communication, right? And as a little background, did you inherit your board? Did they hire you? Were you able to convert it? And then don't spend as much time on that. That's not what really the key here. The key is, how do you communicate with your board? When I assume you're doing this on a regular basis, just kind of educate people on, and this is not for a 5-minute conversation, I understand that, but in terms of how you communicate with the board and how you kind of tee important things up that are really critical to you as an executive that you want to drive strategy, and make sure there's alignment.
Yeah, so I was fortunate, I pulled my whole board together, and when I did that, I was somewhat naive, right? I was way more focused on trying to get people with a bunch of different backgrounds and experiences so that they can add to a fuller conversation, because you recognize that you're not going to have all the answers. So I went into it pretty kind of naively, and without, the end result is I have a board that was at least originally probably way too heavily finance oriented. And what I recognized over time was that if I had to do it all over again, I would go for a board that is all former CEOs for the most part, who have much bigger experiences in dealing with the broader issues, because I think that experience...
We've also been in your shoes.
Yeah.
They're not coaches, they are players.
Right. But that's the second part, is you want them to be a coach, you want them to be very supportive. They all have a fiduciary role that, they got to challenge you on certain things and make sure you're not making stupid decisions. But more importantly, got to help you think through that and be a real team member. And that's taken a long time. I mean, it took me almost 3 years to get a board as cohesive as my team. And that doesn't happen overnight, because boards only meet 4 or 5 times a year. They got other jobs, they're busy, and so it takes a long time to create that cohesiveness. But like in everything, you build a team fundamentally through trust. People, you have to be real, you have to be consistent, you have to build a rapport with people that over time is on trust. So it's, whether it's your spouse, your coworkers, anyone, it's all consistency over time is really what builds trust. once you fundamentally have a trusting environment,
You take it to the next level.
then you can really do things with that. And it's taken a while. Now I have a board that is just as cohesive as my team. And right now, my team is the highest functioning team I've ever worked with. And now I have a board that matches that. And now that's a really powerful combination because we just focus on very interesting strategic things, and all the compliance stuff and the other things that tie down a lot of other public boards is just not as important as it once was, because everyone trusts everyone.
Right. I think I missed one question. It might have been your question, or did I get yours? Did I answer everybody's?
What other questions are there?
Yeah, what other questions are there? I just want to make sure that, go ahead.
Who is your closest mentor, somebody you kept along the way through your professional career? Have you done that?
Yeah.
And let me add that, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah.
I've been blessed in my career. I've had just tremendous mentors that, for a really long time, who I've kept in touch with, all of them. Like, you learn different styles, you learn different approaches, you learn, different situations, what works in one environment doesn't work in another. And, I'm pretty relationship driven, and all my old bosses over the last 25 years, I keep in touch with pretty frequently, and you learn from those, and you bounce ideas off of them, get their perspectives, and I've been really fortunate in my career.
There's a blog, there's a female organization called Forward Women. They sponsor something called Mentoring Mondays. Rick Tocchini is the guy online, and I've participated in probably 5 or 6 of their 20-minute sessions, but every single Monday they have mentoring deals, and mentors are really important. And one thing that you, I think, would benefit from is there's a difference between mentor and advisor. An advisor wants something from you. A mentor is willing to help you pro bono. They're really paying it forward. And both of them can be valuable. You just have to understand that one's playing baseball and the other's playing basketball. Other questions? Yes?
So one of the many challenges that I have being a startup entrepreneur is influencing and getting other people to do stuff.
No, but that was your question. We didn't answer it. How do you get people to join without paying them?
Yeah, that was
your
one of the
question.
things.
Yeah.
I had mentioned the team, but I was like, how do you get people to do stuff with little money?
Equity helps.
But I've had prior experience in government and corporate role, doing all the entry level, rose up into director leadership roles. And you're in that position where you can tell people what to do, and they'll do it because they're getting paid and all that. Now, you're in a startup world and you don't really have the capital. And most people don't give a shit what you're doing, or even care less of what you're doing until, because it's an idea and it's not being executed. You're not making revenue and not making big bucks. So that was my challenge: is how do you influence people, kind of hop on board, love the problem, love the solution, want to kind of be part of that. So.
I've not been in that position. I mean, I came into a company that, had about $30-40 million of revenue, so it was running and people were getting paid.
You offer a salary.
Yeah, so I offered a salary, but I mean, in your situation, if you offer equity to folks, if you can sell the idea, people fundamentally believe it, they will follow you, right? I mean, you just kind of create that team, and I don't think fundamentally, I don't think compensation motivates most people. I think, it's definitely a driver, but people will stay with you and do way more for you based on whether they believe in your vision, they believe in the mission, they like you personally. Those are the things that really drive commitment to you and your company. And so you could be very persuasive and motivate people other ways.
I mean, if David Koresh. So, remember David Koresh, right? Or Jim Jones, Guy in a Punch, right?
Jim Jones is really good.
Same thing, right? They got people to believe in the mission. Steve Jobs got people to believe in the mission. Bill Gates got people to believe in the mission, right? And people you will find, to what Gary said, they're not compensation driven. They're going to be the mercenaries, you want to kick them out. But you're going to find the missionaries that like believe in what you are trying to accomplish. Like, you know, you're disrupting the baby industry, right? Hey, a lot of people, that's you're already got a head start because you're already tugging at the heartstrings of somebody. So to talk about the grand vision and what you're doing, and to be the ability to put the pieces of the puzzle together, because even a taxi driver can have a vision, right? But you have to be able to execute on that in a believable way and make tangible progress. And as long as you're making tangible progress and you've got the right people that believe in what you're doing and they're mission driven, just like you said, that's the way you're going to do it. And yeah, they want equity. That's just part of the game. But at the end of the day, they don't care about the equity if they don't think it's going to monetize. So they got to believe it's going to monetize.
And the most valuable form of compensation that you can give anyone is really just thanks.
Recognition.
Like, just thank you. Like, that's huge. Because, like, people just don't do it. It's so weird. Like, I go out of my way. Like, anytime I get any customer reaching out to say, hey, job well done, like, I really like this, I go out of my way to thank them for thanking us, and then I go more out of my way for thanking the folks on our team, because that's huge. And saying thanks to folks is just, it's really cheap, but it's a huge motivator.
Totally. Other questions? Yes, in the back.
Just kind of thinking about, you know, it's year end and thinking about 2018. Gary, what are your kind of big fears? What scares you about 2018?
I don't know if it's 18 or 19, but there's definitely going to be a recession. So, you know what? You know, this is fresh off the press. So I was going through this with my team today, saying, look, the reason why, you know, I'm focused on getting investment grade is going back to my earlier point. I mean, if you're in a capital-intensive business, the people who have access to capital win. And so there is going to be a recession with a high probability, definitely within 3 years. And so if I can get into this year with a stronger balance sheet, over-equitize, I'm way more willing to do that and take, you know, some of my upside on the equity off the table to put ourselves in a stronger position, because that, fundamentally in our business, that's where I think, you know, what's going to happen. And I want to be in a position of strength when that does, because
that's when you take shares.
I'll be able to take share, and so I'm very focused on that. That's my biggest thing. And the other thing is we're launching a big initiative now to expand internationally. So we're going to be doing a lot of work in Europe, and so spend a lot of time making sure I've got, you know, the same team. One, I have identified team members here that I can transplant over there, and making sure that the folks the companies that we're looking at over there are culturally are very much bought into what we're trying to do. That's my two biggest risks.
Two more questions. Yes.
Going back to when you were talking about prioritizing this, so I'm just kind of getting around to my company, and the hardest thing that I have is that there's so much stuff to do, and I know you said customers first. That is definitely where we try to push and pack time, but a lot of the stuff that we do has to be after the 9 to 5. And that's kind of the challenge that I have. There's so much more else to do during the day that I don't know where to start and go and which to focus on. So if you have any other...
So what's the question now? I'll make sure. How can we help you the most?
Yeah, how to fit everything you can into a day if you're the only one doing it.
Can I make a pithy comment? And then we get the real expert here. So the essence of entrepreneurship is an undertaking of a business enterprise with the complete, total, utter lack of respect of the resources you currently control. And what we as entrepreneurs do is we stop working full-time for somebody else and we start working half days for ourselves. The only question is which 12 hours a day, 7 days a week you're going to work, right? I mean, it's literally, that's the way you're looking at it if you really want to do this. Only you are going to understand what's important as long as you're rational about the way you're approaching your business. And so think about things that are urgent and think about things that are important. And think about it as like portfolio allocation. I can't always be working on the important of something urgent. I can't always be in the urgent if we're not taking care of the important things. But that framework, I was taught by my mentor, that framework is very helpful. And it's fluid. And the less fluid it becomes, the more mature your business is going to be. But it's always going to have some fluidity to that. That's the way I would kind of orient that. But
No, it's true. I mean, we can't tell you. I mean, what I tell the guys is, you know, at a high level, and we're beyond that now. But when we were much smaller, we were always focused on the things that can kill us, right? We need to take those risks off the table. So if it wasn't filing a tax filing on time, or some SEC document.
paying GoDaddy for your domain. That happened to a big company.
Oh no, yeah,
It's like a big company.
There were those things. We would. That's how we prioritize. We can't.
Pay GoDaddy.
Yeah, we can't do anything that can kill the business. Like, we have to focus on those, right? You can't ignore anything that can kill the business. And then after that, it's a prioritization of what you think best optimize it given the time sensitivity of whatever that is. It doesn't end. But even like at my level, you're constantly. I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it doesn't, but it's fun. Like, I mean, I don't have a cross to bear. Like, I'm at the point where it's like a hobby that I just enjoy doing, and I get well paid for it. But it's a fun gig. Like, that's ultimately what you want to do, is make it into a hobby that you enjoy doing.
The other essence, if you are founding a company or if you're a CEO, you also get to pick who you work with.
Yes.
Right? And that's a big driver for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Because if you put a lot of smart people in the room, you're going to figure out how to make money. Are you going to change the world? Maybe, maybe not. But you're probably going to make some money, make a good living. But you're going to want to get a speeding ticket coming to work because you enjoy the intellectual banter that goes on with the people, and you're not dealing like my friend at Google, which his worst enemies are his best friends in the business, right?
Yeah.
One last yes.
I just want to kind of add to yours. I believe you won't see the traction and growth in your company until you're committed like full time into it. There's a total different.
Oh, I didn't hear. So you're just doing it at nighttime?
So he doesn't. He said part time.
Okay, I thought you were saying, hey, I'm doing this during the day, and you're working, and then I've also got some nighttime. So
I currently work in sales as well, and I'm trying to do this.
doing some inside. Okay, no, that's totally cool. That's a great point.
I mean, that's how most people get started, but you'll see there's a point where you can't balance the two, and you have to kind of make a decision on.
Yeah,
do I keep my full-time job here, or
Yeah, he's what we call a
go
one-to-one.
into the unknown here.
The other thing that I would be thinking about is, if you need to go raise money, because you can build a business without raising money. But if you need to go raise money, don't even think about it until you have left that job.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody's going to want to invest in somebody who's not doing something 100%. Because you become a fiduciary for that friend, for that angel, whatever, and it's all in. You are then completely pregnant. It's not like it's binary, right?
Yeah.
It's not, hey, I think I'm doing this. This is just not the way it's going to work. And if you've ever seen a company that's been successful doing it. Now, you can do things on the side for a period of time. And I'll kind of end with one story that goes back to the very first guest that I had started Brian, which was Sanjeev Sidhu. He started a company called i2. Everybody heard of i2 Technologies? The fastest software company to get to $1 billion in sales in the history of software at the time. Took him 7 years. And he and Ken Sharma were, at night, while they were working for TI, they were building supply chain software. And they had gone through 7 interviews with companies, and they were down to their last one. It's either Northrop or Grumman's. I can't remember which one, but it was here in Dallas. And he was telling the story. You can go to startupgrind.com and you can hear the video of this. It's a phenomenal story. He said, obviously, we're engineers. We're not really good at sales. And we were in this finals presentation with 5 other companies. And it was 3 hours, and we never did the demo. We walked out thinking, that's our last lead. We're going to have to shut down 2 years of working a lot of hours in building the software. And the next day, they got a phone call. And they said, we're not inviting anybody else back, because you guys had such knowledge and passion about this concept of supply chain software. We're going to help you go build your vision. That's so cool.
That's great.
And so out of that came the fastest $100 billion software company, right? So they did this at night. So I'm not saying when you have to join, but you have to have that commitment, have that passion, and make sure that you're adding value to the area you want to. And then you have to have a break, right? They had to, because that's a difficult decision for some of these companies that, now we're going to go with the safe solution. We're going to go with option B.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is.
It's really, I mean, I was doing both, right? I was CFO of a big company and then had this little side gig going on in there. And then all of a sudden it started just consuming more and more and more of my time. And I was doing both jobs and it got to the point where I can't do both of these anymore. And then I'm like, all right, it's either I'm going all in on this little thing or I'm gonna go the safe route and I would go run a telephone company, which is kind of boring.
What was you had to go all in, right?
Yeah.
What made you want to lean into Cyrus?
I just loved it. Like I've always had different businesses growing up and started smaller companies, and so that's always been my thing. I've always enjoyed business and enjoyed the whole entrepreneur thing, and so I always knew I was going to do that. It was never, it was never like a really,
question of
second
if.
guessing. Yeah.
It's
I
not
was
if, it's
always
when.
going to do that. Yeah.
Cool.
Even now, I think about it. Ultimately, as long as we're going to do retirement, then
Right.
I'm going to open up a bunch of restaurants and do something that I even love more. Just entertaining.
You know the best way to become a millionaire in the restaurant industry? Start out a billionaire. Okay, so last thing is everybody gets to stand up if you want, say, this is my name, this is my business, this is how I can help you, or this is the help I'm looking for. 10, 15 seconds, if you drone on about your business, I'm gonna ask you to sit down. But, and we'll go, every single person can do it, if not, and the more likely you are to stand up, the more you might meet somebody like I'm gonna do Sean DeLisa, right? Just because we were talking, that's somebody I can help you with. So, anybody want to do it? Start?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
I'm Peter Daly, Daily Solutions, cybersecurity, maturity model assessments, and data security. What I can bring to the team here is I've got one of the largest LinkedIn networks of senior executives in DFW. So Peter Daly is my name. I invite you to send me an invitation.
Cool. So I can help you with the introductions.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Matt Rada. Founding a company called Wojtaszek Apartment Logators. We try to go around and find deals on apartments in the area, and I go and actually make edits of the video of each one to give people an actual tour of where they're going to move into, and we constantly put these out every day. So,
Very
if you
cool.
guys any type of information or advice, I appreciate it.
Next.
Yeah, I'm David Shaw. Got a communications company on optimizing spectrum, how you send and receive communication signal. We're starting to need to scale, find some RF engineers. You know anybody that's kind of on the big R side of R&D. Where I can maybe help is we've won a couple of National Science Foundation awards recently, so I'm becoming a little bit smarter about how to do that.
The foundation awards are cash that the government gives.
Yeah. Non-dilutive,
Money talks, people
Yeah.
whisper.
as easy as going out to raise venture money.
Right. Anybody else? Yes.
My name is Paul. The company is Fast Visa. We're trying to streamline the immigration visa process. So we're looking for work with the nonprofit orgs and then higher eds and companies that need some help in immigration. So let's talk.
What kind of nonprofits?
Catholic charities, Baptist churches, any like the City of Dallas.
And how will they help you?
It's like we streamline their processes. So it's like a lot of their work is like labor-intensive work.
Right.
So we try to process it and automate that part.
Okay.
We need access to those organizations.
Okay. Anybody else?
So you're trying to get folks for visas to come to this country or helping
So
to get
it's
visas
like
outside?
coming to here and then from here, coming and all the way getting to U.S. citizenship.
Oh, okay, great.
That are sponsored through some of these nonprofits.
So nonprofits, the process, so it's like, it's still like a pancake for
Right.
Refugees.
Mhm.
refugees,
Got it, okay.
asylums, all the green couple that are here, poverty level folks.
Mhm.
maybe
Cool.
else.
Very cool. Yes.
My name's Ryan Turner. Our company's called Refinery. So I'm a recovering commercial real estate broker and found a solution that leverages technology to empower occupiers in corporate real estate to make data-driven decisions. So it's gone from the art of brokerage to the science of brokerage, helping companies be smarter, better, faster about their real estate decisions.
So how can you help someone or what help are you looking for?
Yeah, so I'm looking for technology help. We're looking for full stack developers, people that can roll for students and help us with that.
What's your stack?
Interesting question.
Are you looking to like gets you need someone to help you with
We're using
kind of design
off-the-shelf
architect.
tools, yeah, we're using off-the-shelf tools to kind of, BI analytics is kind of our domain. So anything that's involved in that, Sisense, Tableau, those kind of tools.
Okay.
I can help, you know, been in Dallas for a long time, working with C-suite, so love the network, sales is my background.
Very cool. Anybody else? Yes.
Name's Sean Nussman. I'm founder of a company called Jolly Tot. It's an IoT tech-based company, and what we're doing is building a new smart connected nursery. So we've got several products. We've got a smart mobile app called Thrive Baby, which allows parents to monitor, track, and get insights about their baby's activity, nutrition, health, vaccines, all the different activities that a parent would actually have throughout the day. And we have a couple of other products. One, the Soothe Me Smart Connect Swing, baby swing, and...
Hold on, we're not advertising for your business. How can you help people? What help are you looking for?
So, kind of the same boat, iOS, Android developers, and kind of the skill sets that I bring. I bring engineering skill sets. You need, somebody to look over anything that you're trying to design.
Cool. All right, anybody else? Yes.
Hi, Corey Wilkins, founder of a company called Adventure Safe. If you know of anybody or if you're involved with outdoor recreation and you would like a better than 911 solution, so if you got launched off your bike, got stranded on your boat, got hurt on a trail, and you would like our service to your community, which is free by the way, let you know. We officially have a solution that's already programmed and monitoring your community already, so just talk to me. I'd love to talk to somebody.
We have friends in the 911 industry he also wants to talk to.
That's right. Thanks.
Very cool. All right, anybody else? Okay, going once, twice?
I'll
Go ahead. Yes.
Shameless. So I'm a product manager, and I'm just looking to escape the corporate America BS.
God bless you.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to not have to leave Dallas. I mean, I've got people, talking to me in Silicon Valley, but I hope to God I can stay.
Are you a full stack developer?
I'm a product manager.
No, I know.
And do you work for free?
And would you believe in Sean's mission of helping babies?
No, I would need money.
Are you hardware guy?
Product management,
Just product manager.
Very cool. Yes.
I'll do a quick intro. My name is Josh Seaman. I work for the venture debt arm of a major Japanese company called Oryx here in Dallas. We're very late stage investors, so Series B and beyond kind of. If you grow to $10 million in revenue or greater and you want minimally dilutive capital, I would love to talk to you.
Very cool. So thank you all very much, especially thank you to Gary for coming out tonight. Really. Our next event is the 29th of January. It's with Chris McFarland, CEO of Mastergy, which is a really cool software company in the oil and gas space. Then in February, Mark Bunting is at the 17th. I think February 17th, Mark Bunting, longtime friend of mine. He had, I think it's Mark TV that was on, I think it was United Airlines or something like that. He teaches entrepreneurship at the University of Texas. He started several businesses. He would go to Doty's here on Greenville. That's one of his kind of side businesses he's doing. So if you like LSU football, that's where the LSU guys go to watch their football. And then March is open, but then April 4th or 5th? April 4th is Josh Baer from Capital Factory, who's opening up a branch here in Dallas, which is cool. So that's the lineup. If you all have people that you want to hear from, just let me know, let Ricky or Gabrielle know, and we are very open to people. Our whole thing is we want to find entrepreneurs and executives that have been over the potholes that we as entrepreneurs are going over, will go over, or don't know that we're going to go over, but we don't want to go over, and just listen to them. And meet like-minded people, because a lot of you here in this room, like me, have the defective gene of an entrepreneur. And the more we band together and help each other, the more fun we'll have, and we'll enjoy the journey and hopefully enjoy the fruits of the labor. So with that, I want to say once again, thank you all the Tech Wildcatters. Next time it will not be here; it will be in Thanksgiving Tower, but we work. And once again, thanks for the folks at Silicon Valley. They're the ones who provided not only the vino, but also they sponsor this monetarily and have for 5 years, which is really nice. So thank you, everybody, and hope you all have happy holidays and Merry Christmas.